What if I told you that people around you are constantly revealing their thoughts without saying a single word? Every pause, every glance, every shift in posture is quietly speaking. And most people never notice it. Imagine walking into a conversation already knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, when someone agrees with you, and when they're hiding doubt behind a smile. Imagine sensing confidence, hesitation, or curiosity before the other person even realizes it themselves. It sounds like a superpower. But it's not magic. It's awareness. In this audiobook summary inspired by Read Your Mind, you're about to discover how professional mentalists read people in real life not by supernatural abilities, but by understanding human behavior, attention, and psychology. You'll learn how the mind leaks information constantly, how small details create big impressions, and how anyone can sharpen their perception with practice. This is not about controlling people. It's about understanding them. As you listen, you'll start noticing things you've missed your entire life: the way emotions surface before words, the way decisions are made emotionally and justified logically, and the way confidence quietly shapes every interaction. By the end, conversations will feel clearer, people will feel more predictable, and your own reactions will feel calmer and more intentional. So settle in, slow your mind, and get ready to see people differently starting right now. Imagine sitting across from someone who seems to know what you're about to say before the words even leave your mouth. They notice tiny shifts in your posture, a micro-expression flickering across your face, the rhythm of your breathing changing by just a fraction, and from that, they quietly piece together your thoughts, emotions, and intentions. It feels like mind reading. But what if it isn't magic at all? What if it's a learnable skill? From the very first moment you hear the phrase "read your mind," curiosity wakes up. Because every one of us has wondered at some point, how do some people walk into a room and instantly command attention? How do negotiators know when to push and when to pause? How do performers leave audiences stunned, convinced something impossible just happened? And perhaps most importantly, how can we understand people better without them even realizing it? This audiobook takes you inside that world. A world where perception becomes power, where observation turns into influence, and where understanding human behavior changes the way you communicate forever. The ideas you're about to hear are inspired by the principles and experiences shared in Read Your Mind, but this is more than a summary. This is a guided journey into how the human mind reveals itself in everyday moments. Oz Pearlman didn't begin as a mind reader on a stage with bright lights and applause. He began like many people do, curious, observant, and fascinated by how differently people think. Long before he amazed celebrities and audiences, he was studying patterns. Not supernatural ones, but human ones. The way attention works. The way expectations shape perception. The way people unknowingly communicate far more than they intend. The first truth you need to understand is simple, yet powerful. People are constantly giving themselves away. Not because they're careless, but because the mind and body are deeply connected. Thoughts don't stay hidden inside the brain. They leak out through tone, timing, posture, and choice of words. Most people miss these signals because they're too busy thinking about what to say next instead of truly observing. Think about the last conversation you had. Did you notice when the other person leaned back slightly? Did you catch the pause before they answered a certain question? Did you hear the change in their voice when a topic made them uncomfortable? These are not random details. They are clues. And when you learn how to notice them, conversations stop being guesswork and start becoming readable. One of the core ideas you'll keep hearing throughout this journey is awareness. Real mind reading doesn't start with tricks. It starts with attention. Oz Pearlman emphasizes that the most powerful mentalists are not those with fast hands, but those with calm minds. They are fully present. They listen not just to words, but to what sits underneath the words. Most people listen to respond. A mind reader listens to understand. There's a reason why great performers, negotiators, therapists, and leaders all share one common skill: they know how to read people. They can sense uncertainty before it's spoken. They can feel resistance before it becomes rejection. They can spot excitement before it turns into commitment. This skill is not about control, it's about connection. Another important foundation is expectation. The human brain loves patterns. It wants to predict what will happen next. When someone subtly guides those expectations, the mind fills in the gaps automatically. This is why mentalism feels impossible. The audience believes the performer knows something secret, when in reality the performer has guided attention so carefully that the outcome feels miraculous. But here's where it gets interesting. This doesn't only work on stage. It works in everyday life. When you understand how expectations are formed, you can communicate more clearly, persuade more ethically, and avoid misunderstandings that ruin relationships. Oz Pearlman often explains that confidence is not about being loud or dominant. It's about certainty. When you speak with clarity and purpose, people assume you know what you're doing. The mind looks for leadership, and when it senses calm direction, it relaxes. This is why a composed person often seems more intelligent, more capable, and more trustworthy even if they're saying very little. Now consider how powerful this becomes when combined with observation. You begin to notice when someone is unsure, even while they're pretending to be confident. You notice when enthusiasm is real, and when it's forced. You notice when someone agrees with you just to be polite. Suddenly, social situations become clearer. You stop guessing. You start understanding. Another key lesson early in this journey is that reading minds is never about invading privacy. It's about recognizing patterns that are already visible. Think of it like learning a new language. At first, everything sounds like noise. But once you understand the structure, meaning appears. Human behavior works the same way, some with face. People reveal themselves through repetition. The words they choose again and again. The stories they tell. The emotions they avoid. The jokes they make. All of these form a psychological fingerprint. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Oz Pearlman's background in poker played a huge role in developing these skills. At a poker table, reading people isn't optional, it's survival. You learn quickly that emotions create patterns. Nervous players behave differently from confident ones. Someone bluffing often overcompensates. Someone with a strong hand becomes suddenly relaxed. These lessons translate perfectly into real life. In business meetings, people bluff too. In relationships, people hide feelings too. In interviews, people project confidence they don't feel. The environment changes, but human nature doesn't. One of the most empowering realizations is this: when you understand how the mind works, fear loses its grip. Social anxiety fades when you realize everyone else is just as unsure. Conversations become easier when you stop trying to impress and start trying to observe. Influence becomes natural when you focus on understanding rather than controlling. Throughout this audiobook, you'll hear stories, principles, and practical insights that slowly rewire how you see people. You'll begin to notice the pauses, the shifts, the signals you once ignored. And as your awareness grows, so does your confidence. But remember this: the goal is not to outsmart others. The goal is to become more human, to connect more deeply, to communicate more clearly, to listen more fully. True mind reading is empathy sharpened by attention. As we move forward, you'll learn how small details create big impressions, how attention can be directed without force, and how understanding people gives you an unfair advantage not over them, but with them. And before we go any further, let me ask you something important. As you listen right now, are you noticing how your mind reacts? Are you curious? Skeptical? Excited? That awareness right there is where everything begins. Stay with this journey. Because by the time you reach the end, you won't just be hearing about mind reading. You'll be practicing it without even realizing it. And if at any moment during this audiobook you catch yourself thinking, "This makes sense. I've seen this before. I never realized it," then pause for a second and reflect. That moment of recognition is your mind learning a new way to see the world. If you're ready, we'll continue deeper into perception, influence, and the subtle psychology that shapes every interaction you have. Perfect. Let's go deeper. Take a slow breath for a moment. Because from this point forward, you're not just listening to a summary. You're beginning to rewire how you see every interaction in your life. Now imagine this. If someone normally speaks confidently but suddenly hesitates on one topic, that topic matters. If someone normally gestures freely but becomes rigid during a question, that question hits something sensitive. This is how mentalists create the illusion of mind reading. They don't guess randomly. They track patterns and deviations. Now let's talk about attention control. The mind can only focus fully on one thing at a time. Even though we think we multitask, we actually switch rapidly between focal points. If someone directs your attention skillfully, you'll miss everything else. Think about a magician. While your eyes are locked on one hand, the other hand does the real work. But here's the important part: this doesn't only apply to magic tricks. It applies to everyday communication. When someone speaks confidently and directs attention toward a strong idea, you overlook minor inconsistencies. When someone frames a conversation emotionally, you respond emotionally. When someone asks a question with certainty, your brain feels compelled to answer. Language guides attention. For example, instead of asking, "Do you want this?" a skilled communicator might say, "Which option feels more right to you?" Notice what happened. The second question assumes a choice already exists. Your mind automatically shifts from deciding whether to deciding which. This is not manipulation. It's structure. And structure shapes perception. Oz Pearlman learned early that people believe what feels internally consistent. If a suggestion aligns with their identity, values, or emotional state, they accept it. If it conflicts, they resist. So instead of pushing against resistance, you align with it. Now let's talk about confidence projection. Mentalism works because the performer never hesitates. Even when guessing, they speak with certainty. The human brain interprets certainty as competence. Hesitation signals doubt. Certainty signals authority. This is why two people can say the same words but create completely different reactions. Confidence isn't about being right. It's about being steady. And steadiness can be trained. Slow your breathing. Lower your vocal tone slightly. Pause before answering. Maintain relaxed eye contact. Stand evenly balanced. These signals tell others, "I'm grounded." Grounded people feel safe. Safe people are trusted. Trusted people are followed. Notice how none of this involves supernatural ability? It's awareness. Control. Presence. Let's explore another subtle tool: framing. The way a situation is described determines how it is perceived. This is a problem. Versus. This is a challenge. Different emotional reactions. Different outcomes. If you frame feedback as an opportunity, it feels empowering. If you frame it as criticism, it feels threatening. The words stay similar. The experience changes completely. Mentalists frame reality in ways that guide interpretation. And in everyday life, you can do the same ethically and constructively. Now consider this: most people want to feel seen, heard, and understood more than they want to be impressed. If you truly listen, remembering small details, recalling previous comments, noticing mood shifts, you create something rare: psychological safety. When someone feels safe, they reveal more. When they reveal more, they become readable. Reading minds starts with earning trust. And trust begins with attention. Here's an exercise for you. In your next conversation, try this. Say less. Observe more. Notice when the other person leans in. Notice when they lean back. Notice their breathing rhythm. Notice how quickly they respond. Don't analyze. Just notice. You'll be shocked how much information is available. Now let's step into influence without force. Force creates resistance. Subtle guidance creates cooperation. When someone feels they arrived at a conclusion on their own, they defend it more strongly. That's why the best persuaders ask questions instead of making statements. What do you think would happen if? How would that impact you long term? What outcome would feel best for you? These questions direct thought without demanding agreement. The illusion of mind reading often comes from predicting common psychological responses. Humans are more predictable than we think. Given limited choices, most people choose patterns that feel familiar. When offered a range of numbers, certain numbers are selected more frequently. When asked to think of a color and a tool, many think of a red hammer. Patterns repeat across cultures. Why? Because the brain prefers the most cognitively accessible option. Understanding this doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you perceptive. And perception is power. But with power comes responsibility. Oz Pearlman consistently emphasizes ethical use. The goal is not to exploit vulnerabilities but to deepen connection. When you understand how easily perception can be guided, you also understand how easily people can be misled. Choose integrity. Now let's talk about internal mind reading. Before you read others, you must read yourself. Notice your emotional triggers. Notice when you become defensive. Notice when your tone shifts. Notice when your posture tightens. Self-awareness sharpens social awareness. If you can regulate your internal state, you become less reactive and more intentional. And intentional people influence environments naturally. As we move further, you'll begin to see how all these pieces connect. Observation, attention control, emotional awareness, confidence, framing, priming, ethical influence. Each one alone is useful. Together, they transform how you experience human interaction. And here's something powerful to reflect on. Right now, as you listen, you're probably nodding internally at certain points. Certain ideas resonate more than others. That reaction reveals your priorities. If confidence caught your attention, maybe you're working on self-assurance. If emotional leakage fascinated you, maybe you value understanding hidden feelings. If framing stood out, maybe you care about communication clarity. Your focus reveals your mindset. See what just happened? You read your own mind. That's the beginning. If this audiobook made you pause, reflect, or suddenly understand a conversation from your past, don't ignore that feeling. That's awareness growing. Share this summary with someone who loves psychology, communication, or understanding people on a deeper level. And before you go, leave a comment with one insight that surprised you the most, because when you name what you learn, it stays with you longer. Subscribe for more audiobook summaries that sharpen your mind and simplify human behavior. And remember, the more clearly you understand people, the more confidently and peacefully you move through life. Keep listening, keep observing, and keep reading minds, starting with your own.